Greetings, YouTube. The Doctor is in. Dr. Urias Papers here, coming at you with another commentary on Dungeons & Dragons. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave a question or comment. All right, it's time for another installment of the Doctor Spell Prognosis, and today we are talking about the spell Inflict Wounds. Straight up, I'm giving this spell a B-, but there are some things, and I've been doing a little bit of research, that might make this a little bit palpable. If it, this is mainly a cleric spell, but there are ways of getting it without being a cleric. And those might make this spell a little bit better if used in combinations with other things. All right, so it is available for clerics and Oathbreaker paladins, which you don't see a lot of Oathbreaker paladins in D&D games as players. So it's a first level spell. It takes an action. It has a range of touch, verbal, and somatic components. It is School of Necromancy, which is going to be two things are going to be important to note: cleric and School of Necromancy. It is a melee attack, and it does necrotic damage. So basically, you make a melee spell attack against a creature. So when it says melee spell attack, that means that all the things that say melee weapon attack don't count towards this. So you can't use those things on this. The things say melee ranged weapon attack, or melee weapon attack, or ranged weapon attack. Things like it's ranged weapon attack, melee weapon attack, or ranged spell attack, or melee spell attack. So it's a melee spell attack because it's a touch. On a hit, the target takes 3d10 necrotic damage. Now that's pretty good for a first level spell. That is pumping out about 16 points of damage. That's not bad, but you have to touch them, which means you have to be next to them. At higher levels, you can cast this spell using a spell slot of second level or higher, and you can bump it up by a d10 for each slot above first level, which is really good. So it's second, and the reason I say it's 16 points is because it's 5.5 points average per die on a d10. So for every d10 that you add, it's another average damage of 5.5. So if you were to cast a second level spell, then it would be 21 points of damage. If you were to cast it as a third level spell, it would be 26 or 27 points of damage, which is about almost fireball level. So it's about equivalent to a fireball, except that it's a touch attack, which means you have to be very close. Now, are there ways that we can make this better? So, one of the ways, unfortunately, one of the things that we could use to make this better is if we could add metamagic feats onto it. So that's kind of the way I'm going with this. The problem is distance spell. When you cast a spell that has a range of 5 feet or greater, you can spend 1 sorcery point to double the range. Oh, here it is. When you cast a spell that has a range of touch, you can spend 1 sorcery point to make the range 30 feet. So if you can figure out a way to get a sorcerer to be able to cast Inflict Wounds, then you can go that route. Now, are there ways to do that? Because it does do pretty good damage, and if we had a spell that had a range of 30 feet that did 3d10 damage, and if you upcast another d10, I think that would be a pretty good spell. So there are ways to get this spell. So I went through the feats, and there are essentially 2 ways to get this spell. One is Magic Initiate, because it's a cleric. So you can choose cleric, and because you're choosing cleric, it's based off of your wisdom, and it's right there: wisdom for cleric or druid. So you're forced to do that. You get one choice of a first level spell, and you can cast the spell once at its lowest level, and you must finish a long rest. So that's not great. So you can only cast it as a first level spell, and you can only cast it once, and you have to use wisdom. Now there is another way. Shadow Touched. You learn invisibility and 1 first level spell of your choice. I want that to go away. And the first level spell must be from the Illusion or Necromancy School of Magic, which School of Magic, Necromancy. And so you can cast each of these spells without expending a spell slot. Once either of these spells is cast in that way, can't cast it again this way until you finish a long rest. You can also cast these spells using spell slots of the appropriate level. The spell casting ability is the ability increased by this feat, which for a sorcerer is charisma. So you can get a sorcerer who is shadow touched. You can take inflict wounds, and then you can slap on that distant feat, the distant meta magic on there, and you can make it a 30-foot ranged spell, which turns from a melee spell attack into a ranged spell attack, but it uses the same bonus. Now, you could also combine this with a blade singer. So you could be casting that spell as a blade singer as well. You got attacks and things like that. You'd have to mix the blade singer up with the sorcerer. I think the best choice is to do with like a sorcerer or warlock, because then you can put meta magics on top of it to make it. You could empower it. Lots of cool. I mean, there's lots of cool things that you can do with the sorcerer with this particular spell. That is inflict wounds. I mean, it's okay spell on its own, but once you start slapping things on it from the meta magics, I think it becomes much better. So, empowered spell. When you roll damage with the spell, you can spend 1 sorcery point to re-roll a number of damage dice up to your charisma modifier. That's pretty good. You can quicken it. When you cast a spell that targets only one creature, you can twin it, and doesn't have a range of self. You can spend. Oh, it's not a range of self. It's a range of touch. So you can spend a number of sorcery points to target a second creature within range. Now, can you put more than one? So you need 2 of the following meta magic options. You can only use 1 meta magic option when you cast a spell. So you can only use 1 at a time. So I mean, there's a lot of good options there to make this spell better than it is. But all in all, I think it's an okay spell. So, all right, that's what I got for everybody today. I will catch everybody later.